Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power's Save Our Game. Donating at least 100,000 to Irish football via England goals this summer. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Very good morning and you're welcome along yet again to another episode of the Euro 2020 show here on Off the Ball. Shane Hannon with you for the entire duration of the tournament. Every single weekday when there's a game on, we'll be live with you in all the usual places. So we're live right now on the OTB Sports radio station. That's in the OTB Sports app, which you can download for free in the App Store or indeed the Play Store. And we're live on video as well and on stream, youtube.com/Off the Ball, on Facebook and on Twitter as well at Off the Ball. We are live as well on our OTB Sports Euro 2020 show with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, which is donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England scored at the Euros. Sterling's goal, of course, last weekend means that's €10,000 in the kitty so far. And they play England tonight, or Scotland tonight, of course. So potentially there could be goals in that game for England as well, and more added to that kitty. Over the coming weeks and across the tournament, I'll be joined by plenty of Euros legends, football insiders, journalists, people inside the camps as well, as we preview the upcoming matches. Eamon Dunphy will be with us very shortly this morning. I'll also be joined every single day by a different member of Team Off the Ball. As usual, and today it's again time to welcome to the show Mr. Hills of Donegal, Enda Coll. Enda, good morning.
Shane, how are you getting on?
It's been a week since we last sat down in these chairs and spoke to each other in episode 2, I think it was. The tournament kicked off that night with Turkey against Italy. It's been quite a hectic week so far. We're halfway through the group stages in terms of games played, Enda, and I don't even know where to start in terms of the amount of things that have happened in the last week. It's been quite a week at the Euros.
Yeah, the amazing thing about these tournaments is that they have an ability to make you look very stupid very quickly. And I think if you look back at our predictions for the tournament as a whole, there's a couple of ones that I've gotten fairly badly wrong, Netherlands being case in point for that. And there's a couple of teams as well that you got wrong as well. Turkey aren't really living up to that dark horses tag that everyone in Off the Ball seemed to give them. Happily enough, I didn't go for that. But I just think the last week has been what everybody needed at this stage. You know, we're getting to the end of this 18-month hell that we've been in. And there's fans back in the stadium, and there's goals going in, and there's amazing things happening in Europe. And it's a lift that everyone wanted, I think.
Yeah, Turkey was a terrible shout. It was the hipster shout, I think, and I went for it. Like I really, really went for Turkey. I was like, Turkey are going to do a Euro 2008 here. They're going to get to the semi-finals. They have a cracking team. Only conceded 3 goals in qualifying. Beat France and drew with France in qualifying. So I was thinking this is set up nicely to be a great Turkish team. Put 2 Turkey players into my team at the tournament, pre-tournament, in Soyuncu and Burak Yilmaz, who I also thought was going to be a dark horse for the Golden Boot. How wrong I was, and yeah, you can be proved wrong fairly quickly. Another, the thing I love about the Euros, and I was listening to Owen and Aisling on OTB AM this morning driving up from Monaghan, and Aisling made the point that it's the fact that when you come in from the house, doing your bits around town or coming in from training or whatever it is, you come into the house and the TV is on, and you can hear the match in the background at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock on the days where there's 3 games. The matches are on in the background. You don't get to watch 90 minutes for every single game. You try your best to do so, but it's just one of those nice, warm, fuzzy feelings you get inside when you come home and the matches are on.
Yeah, well, I think it was Wednesday or was it Tuesday that there was no 2 o'clock kickoff, and everyone was like, all right, well, what am I doing for this? What am I doing for the next 90 minutes? But I think the best thing about this is that even the dead rubber games that were perceived to be dead rubbers going into it have been quite good. I mean, if you think back to yesterday's game of Ukraine against North Macedonia, that would not have been one that people would have pointed to that was going to be entertaining. But the fact that Ukraine are so kamikaze in the way that they go about things, it turned out to be a really good game, a really entertaining game. North Macedonia are much better than I think a lot of people would have given them credit going into the competition. So, and there's a lot of great goals at this tournament as well. I think that's the thing that's standing out for me the most, is that we're seeing players take opportunities that we wouldn't really see all that often at club level, because it's a bit more methodical and there's a bit more at stake over the course of a long season. But the fact that it's it's group stages, it's knockout, there's more risks taking place in this tournament. I think if you think Yarmolenko's goal, Schick's goal against Scotland, De Bruyne's goal yesterday, Locatelli's goals against Switzerland yesterday, both of them were excellent. I mean, we're seeing some unbelievable goals, so it's definitely not lacking entertainment value.
Tell you what, I would not like to be picking the goal of the tournament. We will be picking the goal of the tournament, by the way, at no doubt the last episode of the Euro 2020 show here in Off the Ball. Even the own goal of the tournament will be a cracking one to decide. I think there's been 3 so far, maybe in the tournament.
Did you see this person? I think the tweet went viral after the first game. They had a bet on at the start of the tournament for there to be no own goals at all in the tournament, and there have been more own goals at this tournament than any other tournament so far. Yeah. So unlucky for that person, but I mean, that's what happens.
Exactly. No, such an enjoyable tournament so far. I want to bring you as well my team of the tournament. This is the Rolling All-Stars team of the tournament. So this is the team I went for yesterday on the show. So for the benefit of the podcast listeners, Vaclik of the Czech Republic keeps his place in goals. He, of course, kept that clean sheet against the Scots. A couple of nice saves in that game as well. The back four, Dumfries, the Netherlands, I've had in for a while, and let me tell you, last night's performance has done him a lot of favours. He's staying where he is, let me tell you. In the centre back positions, Joe Rodon for Wales and Martin Skriniar for Slovakia. Thomas Meunier for Belgium was left back. The midfield four then, Aaron Ramsey, Wales, Paul Pogba, France, and an Italian pair of Locatelli and Berardi. Berardi was excellent in that opening game, and Locatelli has had quite a tournament. 2 goals, I think, for the first time in his career, scoring a brace of goals. And up front, Romelu Lukaku for Belgium, 2 man-of-the-match displays. Again, brilliant for Belgium last night, coming from behind to beat Denmark. And Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal, of course, breaking records left, right and centre. And this is the team. Only the one change, Enda, and I'm going to get a bit of stick for this, no doubt. But Thomas Meunier, for me, had to come out. He wasn't that impressive for Belgium yesterday, albeit they did beat Denmark, as I said. But Matthijs de Ligt has come in for the Netherlands. I had to put that second Dutch person in there because they've been doing so well at the tournament. 2 wins for them. You might question my putting de Ligt at left back, and you're dead right, but
I'm absolutely questioning that.
I didn't know who else to take out, and like, he can play left back, so I'm the manager, I'm the gaffer, the buck stops with me. Technically it's my decision, I can put my players wherever I want, but go on, tell me why I'm wrong.
I do appreciate the fact that you're sticking to your 4-4-2 formation, despite the fact that pretty much every team at this tournament are playing 3 at the back. But Matthijs de Ligt is not a left back. He's playing out and out centre half, and he's the best player, probably maybe at the tournament, best centre half at the tournament, pound for pound, given what he does at club level as well. So, but he's not left back, and I think if you put him at left back, his lack of left-footedness and pace will be shown up very quickly. I think the likes of Frankie de Jong is unlucky not to get into the team.
Fair.
I thought he was excellent last night in the Dutch win, so I think he would be potentially a change that I would make, maybe for Paul Pogba. But again, Paul Pogba has to play a game this weekend. So this is why the rolling team is a bit difficult, because as soon as you put the players into your team, they could immediately be out of the team because of the fixtures coming up so quick and fast.
Totally. Like, Mbappe's unlucky, Ciro Immobile is unlucky. There's a few players, Gareth Bale's probably a little bit unlucky.
Aaron Ramsey's very unlucky.
No, he's in there.
Was he?
He was on the right wing. Don't you worry about that. 2 Wales boys, Joe Rodon as well in centre half. So give me abuse on YouTube or Twitter at ShaneHannon01 if you want to rip apart my team so far. Delighted to welcome to the Euro 2020 show as well. Now, this morning, the broadcaster and presenter of the Stand podcast, Eamon Dunphy. Morning, Eamon.
Good morning, lads. How are you?
Keeping well, Eamon. Keeping well. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Tell you what, Eamon, any worries about quality in this tournament? We're fairly quashed early on. A lot of people spoke about the fact that there were 24 teams in this tournament, and maybe it might take a little bit of the quality away. But how are you enjoying the action so far? It's been quite a week.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's intriguing. Most teams trying to play attacking football, no one doing the long ball thing. Obviously at this stage in the tournament, teams are cautious in the first game. It's hugely important to avoid defeat in your first game, and that shows really the caution that teams approach the games with. But as we move on, and we get rid of the dead wood, then I think the tournament is intriguing, and I'm really enjoying it. But I'm looking forward to the knockout games. I think will be when it really takes off.
What's your game watching routine now, Eamon? Because I know a lot of people with the pubs with the pubs being closed, it's different.
Yeah, I don't watch the 3 matches every day. I watch the big matches of, for example, France and Germany, but I want to see every team at least once. Watched Italy twice, the game against Turkey and Switzerland, and really that's been the most interesting aspect of the tournament so far, how quickly the Italians have gone into it. The scoring goals. I'm not content, as Italian teams usually are, to get a goal and then sit back. They're going for more goals. It's been most impressive. I would say the only question mark is the quality of their opponents, Turkey and Switzerland. I didn't think Switzerland tried a leg. I thought Shaqiri was overweight. I thought Xhaka was his usual flamboyant but useless self with his blonde hair. But Italy were hugely impressive. Hugely impressive. The way they took their goals, Locatelli, 2 goals the other night, comes from a small club that I can't even pronounce. Sassuolo, yes. Small Italian club. He's out of contract. I imagine he's the player that will have alerted most coaches in Europe to his ability, and they'll want to sign him. He's a box-to-box midfield player. He's technically highly skilled, and he scored 2 great goals the other night.
Eamon, you touched on a good point there for Italy. They're not made up of, if you think of the great Italian squads, Italy in the past would have had the great players from AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus. This is very much a squad made up of not so much the best players playing for the best clubs in Italy, but players like Locatelli who are playing for Sassuolo, and they do have a couple of key players like Immobile and Chiesa who are playing for the top 4 clubs. But I suppose, does that show that if you get a team with good players, with a good manager and a good game plan, that maybe you can go further than a team like, say, England, for example, who are built with a load of superstars but might not have the same cohesive game plan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think Mancini's done a real good job. They're unbeaten for 28 games. They haven't conceded a goal for 10 games. And I think he has gone for a team rather than a collection of talented individuals, which when you're managing a major nation like England, like Italy, it's very difficult for a coach to have the fortitude and courage to say, I'm picking a team. I'm not picking a team of individuals. And it shows in Italy's record. To go 28 games unbeaten in international football now is amazing. They're strong at the back. Chiellini came off with a hamstring injury in the first half against Switzerland. I'd be worried about him being missing, but he and Bonucci form a great partnership. Now, playing for Juventus this year, Chiellini's been exposed. He's old. He looks old, but he's the heart and soul of that team. He's a leader, and they'll need him back, I think, as the tournament progresses. But for now, they've made the most spectacular impression on me.
Eamon, I guess it's a week ago now since the Italians played that opening match of the tournament against Turkey, and like I remember I was listening to yourself and John Giles talking on the stand, and you were talking about that a moment we spoke about a couple of times on this show as well, the opening ceremony and the bizarre moment where the ball was taken onto the pitch by a remote control car. Like you weren't a fan of little stunts like that, I'd imagine.
Not really. I mean, we all have to have a marketing department and assistants, and marketing is fine. I mean, that's where the sponsorship money comes from. That's where the money players get comes from. But I draw the line at a small Volkswagen toy taking the ball to the referee in the centre circle. I just thought it was a touch of bad taste and excess there. No big deal, but it does show you or tell you something about UEFA and the way they've approached this tournament. How can we extract every possible dollar? And I don't know what Volkswagen paid for that particular stunt, but it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Just on that, while we're on the subject of UEFA, I guess the Christian Eriksen incident and
yes.
Look. Thankfully, he's okay, and he's put up the Instagram post with the thumbs up and released a statement saying he's supporting the team. And look, it was lovely to see the tributes to him last night in the Denmark-Belgium game. And clearly, our thoughts are with him, and hopefully he's okay, regardless of whether he plays football again or not. But what were your thoughts when that news was coming through last Saturday? And I guess also, Eamon, the fact that UEFA gave Denmark this ultimatum that the game had to be played, an hour later, or did that leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth?
Yes, I think Peter Schmeichel and Kasper Schmeichel both said that the ultimatum was made or given, and the players were upset. You could see when Eriksen was on the ground how upset his teammates were and how dignified they were. They formed a protective wall around him so people couldn't see him, but they were crying. And it was a terribly dramatic moment. His wife was there, and the emotion of the Danish players and indeed everyone on the pitch, and the referee did a very good job, the English referee, of immediately understanding what was happening. But the emotional toll that would have taken on the players would certainly have led anyone with any sense to say these guys are not ready now to play another 50 minutes football. It just isn't possible. Give each team a point, and let's say, thank God, Christian Eriksen is okay, and that's the big result. To make them go back on the pitch and play 50 minutes more football, I thought was brutal.
I think if you look at their performance against Belgium yesterday, I know they lost, but they were much better yesterday than they were against Finland, and you could clearly see that they had time to develop and think about what had gone on and take it all in and get back to where they should be for this tournament. But in a bizarre way, they could still go through because of the 24-team tournament, because if they win their last game, there is a chance they might be one of the best third-place teams. In terms of that, in terms of the 24-team tournament and, the ball coming onto the pitch and the way that UEFA has treated this entire tournament, is that something that you like or dislike, that the fact that, you can play very poorly in the group stage, really, and then still go through on one game and the final game, and then maybe teams like Netherlands and Italy are already through now, they can just rest their players for their final group game?
Yes, it's worth remembering that not too long ago, the finals were 8 nations, and then they extended and extended. A lot of those extensions are political. And for example, why are teams having Wales, for example, and Switzerland having to travel to Baku to play 2 games and then come back to their base? I mean, what's Baku got to do with it? It's in Azerbaijan. It's a long, long way in the middle of a tournament, and to have to go there and come back and go there again and come back, what's that all about?
Yeah, and I'd say there's a lot of decisions above our pay grades and decisions made by top brass and people in suits that we are not aware of. But
wait until next year, lads, when the World Cup is played in Qatar in December.
Yeah, it's not.
What's that going to do to the European seasons, to the Champions League, to the Premier League, to Serie A? I don't know what it's going to do, and I don't know how it's going to be managed, but it looks to me like the whole season will be a write-off. Now, Qatar have no history in the World Cup, and there are grave suspicions about how they acquired the World Cup. And there have been serious allegations of corruption, and that's not right. And it's a reflection, really, of something that's extremely unwelcome in soccer, and I'm being diplomatic.
Yeah, it's an issue that, like, I was driving up yesterday listening to Ger and Owen on OTB AM talking about sports washing and the fact that I guess what FIFA want and what UEFA want is us to be talking about the football, and the reality is, but the problem is, and I'll be guilty of this as well, is, when Qatar eventually comes around and we talk about the human rights issues and sports washing and that sort of thing, and corruption and alleged corruption, like, we'll only be talking about, can't wait to see Phil Foden in action at this World Cup or whatever else, a week out from the tournament, or during the tournament. Unfortunately, by the large majority of people, that will all be forgotten. It will just be the World Cup in Qatar, and it will all be kind of left behind in the ether.
Yes, and the temperature there may not be football friendly. It may be 50 degrees in an air-conditioned stadium. And I think an Irish company might be doing the air conditioning, so we'll see how that works.
That's a good gig to get. Good gig to get. Eamon, I suppose the one advantage of having the multiple different cities at the tournament is the fact that a lot of fans from across Europe get to witness European Championship games in person.
Yes.
Now, I know, like, over the last year we've talked about the importance of fans, and look, I know, like, for example, in different sports, like, this is my, it will come as no surprise to anyone off the ball that I'm bringing snooker into a question, but, like, for example, at the Crucible, and any couple of years that I was at the Crucible, I know you were at the Crucible in '97 when Ken Doherty won that world title, and, like, the impact of fans there is incredible, and the impact of the lack of fans there for the World Championship a couple of years ago, or last year, was also so noticeable. The same is there in football, and it's been clearly noticeable over this Euros, how different the atmosphere is with fans, and really how lacking it would have been without them. So that, at least that's one positive we can take from this tournament.
Very much so, yes. And it's brilliant to see fans back in the stadiums. And as you say, the absence of fans for the best part of a year has been terrible. And I don't know who said it, but I agree with the idea football without fans is nothing. Yeah,
and it's just become patently clear, and like to see it at this tournament, and to see the impact of even the national anthems. Like when you're sitting there watching, particularly maybe the Italian national anthem or the Scottish national anthem, and like we spoke to Paddy Agnew on this show yesterday, the Italian football writer, and he's talking about, you know, the impact of COVID in cities like Bergamo, where thousands died and bodies were piling up in morgues due to COVID, and for the country now to be united by this swaggering, swashbuckling Italian team that is just bringing a smile to the faces. And look, football is not the be all and end all, but this Italian team is bringing smiles to the faces of everyone in Italy, and that's what this tournament does.
Very much so. And when you see the Scots singing Flower of Scotland tonight in Wembley, that's the 2,000 that have tickets. There'll be 18,000 wandering around the West End with beer on board. So I wouldn't like to make any predictions about how that will end. But Flower of Scotland is a particularly beautiful anthem, and I'm looking forward to that before the game.
Yeah, it's gonna be a cracking game. We should talk about that one, England Scotland tonight from 8 p.m. in Wembley, and not to bring it back to what everyone's bringing it back to, but I guess Euro '96 has been hot on the lips of a lot of people. You know, that beautiful sunny day when England beat Scotland, and the Gaza goal, and the water in the face celebration. What are your memories of that tournament? I mean, it's how many years ago now? It's 25 years on. So do you remember that tournament quite well? It was vivid. Ireland weren't there. The Republic of Ireland weren't at the tournament, of course, but it was still such a memorable tournament. Yeah,
it was. And Gaza's goal was memorable. It was a great goal. There had been some in the pre-tournament build-up. There had been some behaviour. A number of the English players had gone out for a few drinks. And the dentist's chair impression afterwards was funny. What I remember of the tournament is England again under pressure. Venables was the manager, I think, at that stage. They went out in the penalty shootout. I think it was Gareth Southgate or Stuart Pearce, or both, who missed. But it was England's. The idea was football was coming home. It didn't quite. They got to the semi-final. And I remember, what I remember most about it is the sense of disappointment that English people had. They had a good coach, they had a good team, but it didn't happen.
England are an interesting one for this one, Eamon, because I guess if you look at the stages of England, that '96 team, there was an incredible anticipation going into that. As you said, they thought football was coming home, and then you have the golden generation in the mid-noughties who completely did not live up to the expectations of them at all. World Cup in Russia last year, or a couple of years ago, there was no expectations going in, and they did quite well. And now again, it seems that we've reversed the cycle again, that there's massive hype with this England side again. What's your view of this English side and the general support of it? Because I've heard a lot of people asking whether Irish people should be supporting England at this, and whether we'd be happy to see them winning this tournament. So what's your views on that? Like, should Irish people be happy if England go on to win this, or can we even deal with the outcome of it?
Should be happy if they score a lot of goals, because Paddy Power is going to reward Irish soccer, grassroots of Irish soccer, by paying 10,000 for every goal they score, sterling. And if Declan Rice scores, or Jack Grealish, they'll double that to 20,000.
Never heard of that.
I think Irish people up to a point, will want England to do well. Particularly, we all follow English teams, whether it's Liverpool, Manchester United, or whatever. But the problem with England doing well is how they then behave and how they kind of want to rule the world. So I'm speaking for myself, but I think I'm not alone in not liking that sort of triumphalist way they have. And therefore, I hope they get a good kicking somewhere down the line.
Yeah, like I've been the same. I think a lot of people would happily see England get to the final and then lose. I think that's the way about it is. But I don't personally. A lot of people are bringing the nationalism argument into it and the history of the two nations together. But I think it's just football rivalry, really. Like, why would you want your main rivals across the water to go on and win this, especially when you know how they're going to react when they do?
Yeah, I mean, they will claim then that they're, the master race in football, and they're not. I mean, looking at the football this year, I'm looking at, the Premier League is the best league. It's the strongest league because it's the richest league. There's no doubt about that. But the Premier League is really largely populated by the best players from around the world. And English football now, this is an opportunity. They have some very good young players. They have Harry Kane, made an inexplicable decision to play Kieran Trippier at left back. He doesn't have a left foot, and they have two very good left backs, Luke Shaw and Chilwell, that are sitting on the bench. That's crazy. It's a crazy team selection, really, and they may well pay a heavy price for it. At what stage, I'm not sure. But they have got some good players. Foden, Mason Mount, these are very, very good players. Bellingham is young. He's a squad player at the moment. Jadon Sancho, who I believe, I was talking to Didi Hammam, and Didi has been watching him for Dortmund all year, said he's really top class. So it'll be interesting to see if these young players are unleashed, if they can deal with the pressure of being favourites for every game they play, which they probably will be. And tonight, actually, against Scotland, there'll be an awful lot of pressure in that game because Scots have nothing to lose, and they'll be up for it big time.
What have you made of England so far then? I know John Giles, he thinks that the squad is very talented, and as do many other people, but Gareth Southgate, he says he thinks he's very good at PR but maybe not very good at management. So what are your thoughts on Southgate? Is he good enough to lead England to Euros, or do you think they're a little bit still on balance?
The jury would have to be out. I mean, he did lead the team to the semi-final of the World Cup, and they lost to Croatia, of course. But and because they play so many, their seeding gives them easy qualifying groups, and they play lots of games, easy games. I don't know about Gareth Southgate. He has no record in club management. The decision to play Trippier left back is like way out of left field and makes no football sense at all. And when you make those decisions, somewhere along the line, when you play the good teams, the contenders, you pay for it. That's a big mistake. If he sticks with that mistake, will he play Jadon Sancho? He played Raheem Sterling, for example. He picked him to play against Croatia. Sterling scored a goal. Now, anybody looking at Manchester City, particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, would not have picked Raheem Sterling, but he had faith in him. He picked him. He scored a goal. So he got that right for now. But there's a long way to go in this tournament. My suspicion is that John's right. But Southgate has a chance now to prove that he can be a winner. And he also should be commended for giving these young players game time. Like Mason Mount is a starter. Phil Foden is a starter. So he deserves credit for that. The English defence, particularly the goalkeeper and the two centre halves, that's where the weakness is. And that weakness will be exposed before the tournament's out.
I mean, just to pick up on something that Enda touched on there, like the whole English-Irish rivalry thing and the nationalism, and yeah, look, it's definitely a football rivalry now for a lot of people. For other people, it's 800 years of rivalry in some ways. But I mean, we had a piece on the show. It was actually just a conversation that came up out of nowhere on a news round one night. And us radio producers, we put a lot of time into building, big interviews and interesting pieces. And sometimes they fall flat, sometimes they do great. Just a conversation on a whim one day. Nathan was on the news round talking about his son wanting to buy an England jersey. Now, Nathan is a Mayo man living in Dublin, and his son all of a sudden wanted an England jersey, and this caused a dilemma, and the text line blew up. I mean, people on both sides of the aisle kind of saying, yeah, absolutely buy the kid an England jersey, why wouldn't you? And others saying, no, absolutely not. I mean, there's definitely something interesting there that kind of crops up every time England are in a major tournament. We have to sit there and watch them, especially when Ireland aren't there. We're left thinking, do we support them, do we not? It's an awkward question, and one that we've never really got any closer to answering.
No, I think for the reasons I stated earlier, it's not so much that we're against the England footballers and winning things. It's the attitude that comes with it. I mean, they have this unfortunate tendency to think they rule the world and that they are somehow exceptional and different from other people. And that's what they're out to prove. And it's almost unbearable to think of them strutting around. I must say, in 1966, when I was at the World Cup semi-final and final, and I wanted England to win. I wanted them to win the World Cup. And I was living there at the time. So I think George Orwell said, football is war without the casualties. And that's a pretty good way of explaining it. We can have strong feelings pro or anti-England, but no one's going to die.
For sure. And the flower of Scotland, as you said, it's going to be spine tingling this evening when that
it will
plays
be
out. And when I think about that rivalry, the England-Scotland rivalry, and it's such a rivalry with great history, 1872 or something, I think, the first time these countries played each other. But do you think, and I've heard Damien Delaney speak about this before, about how the modern dressing room is totally different to dressing room back in the 70s and 80s, whereby you go in now and there's no music, people have their earphones on, they might be on Twitter literally minutes before they go out for a warm-up, and it's a completely different vibe. Maybe I'm being, I guess disrespectful or whatever to younger players at the moment, but do you think there's a disconnect for younger players with these rivalries, that maybe they don't fully appreciate them like maybe generations gone by, that they're just going in and playing the game of football and headphones on, forget about it, get out and tug out and play the game? Is there something there that maybe, or am I being a little bit unfair to the younger generation?
No, not at all. I think, I'd welcome it if the younger generation forgot all that old stuff. Rivalry is natural in sport. If you're playing a team, I mean, if you take Italy, Switzerland, they're neighbours the other night. But that game in Rome, it didn't need anything artificial injected into it to make it really, a tough encounter. And the Italians approached it with vigour. You don't need to inject politics or ancient rivalries. But in the case of England, with us, with Scotland, with Wales, there's a thing. And the thing will always be there. It's not really vicious or unpleasant. It's just a thing. We don't want them to start stomping off, waving Union Jacks and telling us all how wonderful they are.
What about Scotland then, Eamon? Going into this fixture, I think there was a lot of talk around Steve Clarke's starting 11 in the Czech Republic game. This is a game that he's going to have to get it right, and probably going to have to be a bit more adventurous if he's going to get a result of some sort at Wembley. I think down the right-hand side is definitely where they struggle, with Jack Hendry at right back and Stephen O'Donnell then playing right wing back for them. So what do you expect of Scotland? Do you think they can go and get a result against England tonight?
I have a high regard for Steve Clarke. I think he's a really good coach. He was with Mourinho for a long time. He knows his stuff. I think they will put it up to England. Yes, I think Robertson, in particular, it will be dangerous, and he's a player that can deliver, as we've seen for Liverpool assists. Scott McTominay in midfield is a Manchester United starter, really. He's a good, tough pro, and they won't be in any way overawed. They'll be familiar with the England players. They will know that this is an opportunity for them. They don't have really much to lose. And it will be, I would expect, a kind of British-type game. And it'll be vigorous. The tackles will be flying. And I think from England's point of view, there's massive pressure. And they may well feel that pressure. People like Foden, Mason Mount, although Mount appears to be impervious to pressure, he's a marvellous player, a real great player in the making. But some of the English players may feel the pressure. If Harry Maguire starts, for example, it'll be his first game in the tournament, and that's very important. Will he start with John Stones? Will Mings be there? And Pickford is always liable to make a mistake. The England team has a lot of talent, but there are flaws in it. Trippier playing left back, not good. The two central defenders, whichever two, and the goalkeeper. That sort of triangle is critical to every team. If it's not right, and it isn't right in England's case, then there's opportunity to cough up goals. Maybe not so much against Scotland, but you wouldn't rule it out. But certainly when they come to play Italy, when they come to play the big teams, Portugal, I wouldn't fancy that triangle against Portugal or against France. And that's where England will have real problems, in my opinion. That's the weakness in their team. They will, and the other question I would have would be about how much Raheem Sterling will contribute over a tournament. He did okay against Croatia, but it was a very impressive performance by Phillips, Calvin Phillips, a player who's emerged, and he was outstanding against Croatia. He made the goal for Sterling. He's going to be a big key player for England, and that's a real discovery. And I'd give Gareth Southgate great credit for picking Phillips and for blooding him and letting him play. Yeah, that was the key decision.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Calvin Phillips actually plays in this game, because I think the thinking behind that was to really pack the midfield against Croatia, because that's where they were the strongest. So he definitely lived up to the billing, and I think he was exceptional.
He was outstanding.
In terms of, just to finish off with this game, we had the manager Craig Brown, who was managing Scotland today. Gaza scored that goal in Euro 96 on the show last night, and the talk of emotion and how you get up to the emotional pitch of this sort of fixture came up, and he said that he didn't want his players to be overly emotional going into it, because you want your players thinking rationally when they get onto the pitch. But it feels like when you're a team like Scotland going into this, you need some sort of oomph going into it with the fans there, and maybe even just for the first 10 minutes to just get in the faces of England. So what's your thoughts on that? Do Scotland need extra motivation going into this? Do they need to get up to the emotional pitch, or are they better just sticking to the game plan like Steve Clarke?
No, I think they're better not getting up to an emotional pitch. I think they're better focusing on the jobs they have to do. And for every team in every game, the first 15 minutes is critical, particularly away from home. So you don't want to give up anything soft in the first 15 minutes. Then you're in the game. Then it's game on. So if Scotland survive that opening, the home team's usually opening flurry, 15 minutes. Once you contain that, once there's no damage done, then you settle into the game, then you can knock the ball around, then you can begin to think of ways you can hurt your opponents. So I would say Steve Clarke he is a very good coach. And what he'll say is, okay, first 15 minutes, be prepared for England to put their foot on the accelerator, to look for something early, weather that particular storm, and then you go about your business and play. So that's the way they ought to approach it. If you get too emotional, you don't think as clearly as you should.
Eamon, we might turn our attention to Group F and the so-called Group of Death, because a couple of very good games tomorrow. I know Hungary playing France in Budapest from 2 o'clock tomorrow. And the French, a lot of people's favourites heading into this tournament, and look, the opening game against Germany probably hasn't changed much in that regard because they have serious strength and depth. And look, there was talk of a little bit of discontent, behind the camp with Benzema involved and Mbappe involved and Giroud involved. But I guess as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, there's going to be French discontent at a major tournament anyway. But they've been fairly impressive in their opening game, and not a lot will have changed in a lot of people's minds in terms of them being the outright favourites to win this tournament.
No, they were my favourites because of the quality in the team, the individual quality. Now, whether that can sort of manifest itself as a team performance, I'm not sure. I was a bit disappointed, I must say, the other night by their performance. I thought they could have got more out of it. And Kante was superb. Pogba, for reasons that mystify me, was nominated as man of the match. Mbappe was deadly and dangerous. But Germany played cleverly, played a high line, and Mbappe was repeatedly caught offside. But they do have around the team, around the pitch, outstanding players. The right back, Pavard, very, very, very good player. My doubt would be Pogba's fortitude and the goalkeeper. I just do not know how Deschamps won the World Cup with Pogba and that goalkeeper. They'd be my doubts. But Mbappe, Griezmann, these are top players. Kante, of course, who I thought was man of the match the other night. So they have a formidable squad. There are options for Deschamps as well, and I think they're worthy favourites.
Pogba obviously played the pass for the opening goal against Germany, and he was actually speaking ahead of this game today, and he was talking about how he has more freedom to play in this France side than he does at Manchester United. Yeah. I would presume that has a lot to do with N'Golo Kante playing beside him. But so you don't think Pogba has been particularly good for France?
Well, I'm not a fan of Pogba. I think he struts around the place, and I don't quite see it. I mean, don't forget Alex Ferguson let him go from Manchester United cheaply, and they had him there for 3 or 4 years. So it wasn't. They know him. I don't get Pogba. I wouldn't have him in any team, in any tournament. But the fact is, he was in the team that won the World Cup, and he played well. In the semi-final, he played particularly well. But in a crunch game, whether it's for United or for France, I've never really had faith in him to get the job done. I really just don't have it. I mean, and it's not a prejudice because he cost 90 million euros, but I would expect a player who's rated so highly to deliver more in terms of being responsible, getting on the ball at critical moments, working as hard as he should work. I just don't get it. But I have to say, Didier Deschamps is one of the most respected football men in Europe. He won the World Cup as a player. He was captain of that great French team, won the World Cup, won the European Championship. Now as a coach, he's won the World Cup. So, who am I to criticize him? But you can only offer your opinion.
Of course, and then I guess there's probably an element of Pogba maybe as a leader in the team in terms of, we saw the video of him in the dressing room before the World Cup final in 2018, kind of rallying the troops, and look, maybe there's an element of that as well, that he's a force in the dressing room. But maybe the other teams then in that Group F then, Eamon, so it's Portugal and Germany tomorrow at 5 o'clock in Munich, and Portugal, I mean, a lot of people fancy Portugal after that opening game, and like Cristiano Ronaldo in particular, it's hard to find more superlatives about this man, but he's kind of closing in on more international goal scoring records, and regardless of what he does, I mean, off the ball he's kind of getting on a bit in years, but he still scores a lot of goals for this Portuguese team. And is an integral part.
They're a terrific team. They really are. The great coach, a lot of very good experienced players. They have Diaz now at the back alongside Pepe. They're going to give you nothing. They gave nothing away ever with this coach. Very hard to score, very hard to put them under pressure at the back. And then they have Fernandes, of course, and they have Ronaldo. They've got the Silva from Bernardo Silva from Manchester City. They really have a lot of quality through the team, and they're very, very hard to beat. And they were like the 3-0 result against Hungary kind of flattered them, because Hungary put up an amazing resistance and the goals came very, very late on. But I think there's a really interesting situation in that Group F. The second team, the team that finishes second, goes to Wembley to play England. Now, neither France nor Portugal will want to be that team. So they really are playing hard for first spot. I'm not ruling Germany out quite, but they don't look, and Didi Hammam has said, I talked to Didi on the podcast, The Stand, he said he doesn't think they will be contenders. So either France or Portugal are likely to turn up at Wembley in the last 16 knockout game. I don't think they'll want that assignment. So there'll be Portugal's 3 goals against Hungary might matter. France might go for goals tomorrow. They need to get goals to top the group.
Yeah, there's almost an argument that you nearly would rather finish third than second in that group and hope you get one of the best third place teams to progress. But I mean, the Germans, you mentioned them there, and no one really fancied them in advance of this, and Jogi Löw has been in charge for so long at this German team, and of course he's going to be replaced by Hansi Flick after this tournament. But do you think there's an impact there when a manager maybe not overstays his welcome, but a lot of the publicity around Löw has been negative enough, you know, after the disaster in Russia in the World Cup, and of course losing 6-0 to Spain, losing to North Macedonia. They've had some results and he's held on by the skin of his teeth, but can that have an impact on a major tournament where there's a manager that, first of all, you know he's leaving after the tournament, and second of all, he's come close to being fired or walking away due to some poor results in recent years anyway?
Yes, there is. I mean, it could be like a lame duck politician. You know, when people know you're off, that's it. He brought back Hummels and Müller, who he'd left out of the squad for a couple of years, and people think they should never have been left out. No, Germany won't contend to win it, and they'd probably get out of their group. They may get out of the group because Hungary are the whipping boys there. I'm not sure about the stats required, but maybe Germany will get out as one of the better third place teams. But Portugal and France are way ahead of them, and that's the real importance in that group for France and Portugal as potential winners is don't want to go to Wembley to play England at that stage in the last 16, because even if you won the game, it would take its toll, and you don't want to be involved in life or death matches that early in the tournament. That would be my take on it, and I'm sure that's their take on it.
And we'll keep you much longer. You've been very good with your time. Just to ask you about VAR, another topic that's been kind of discussed a little bit in this tournament, and I don't know what your take on it is. Like, it's kind of taken away from the game in some ways. You can't celebrate goals anymore without taking that pause of breath to see if it's actually going to stand. But seems to be being used far better in this tournament than, for example, in the Premier League. I mean, what are your thoughts around the technology generally and how it's, I guess, adapted?
Yeah, I was a big advocate of VAR before it came in, and people that I respect, Didi Hammam, who I respect greatly, very intelligent observer of things, he said it'll be a disaster, and I argued that it wouldn't. John Jazz was also very keen on it. It's been a disaster in my opinion. Didi was right. The problem, I think, is that the interpretation, there's been rule changes about the handball, there's been rule change about offside as well, where they don't put the flag up, which is totally off the wall. So I'd like to see it scrapped and go back. It's undermining referees as well. It's been a disaster. It's been bad for the game, bad for the players, bad for the fans. We just have to go back and let the officials officiate. Maybe offside is the one area where you could retain it, and perhaps goal line technology, but we cannot go on, as you pointed out, you know, not being sure if you can celebrate a goal, and your fans not being sure if they can celebrate a goal without looking for some small infringement that, there's inconsistencies in the decisions referees are making, and VAR only highlights the inconsistencies. So it's a mess. But then, the people who run soccer are not the brightest, I'm afraid.
Listen, Eamon, you've been great with your time this morning. Thanks a lot for that, and no doubt we'll check in again across the tournament here in the Euro 2020 show. But enjoy the tournament, enjoy the action this weekend as well.
Okay, let's hope Scotland win, guys.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Eamon Dunphy there, of course, legendary broadcaster here in Ireland. But and there's so much to dive into there. We'll get into our predictions now in just a second. I want to bring you though first the markets for this weekend with Paddy Power. So 3 games down for decision today, and loads of action as well across the weekend. So have a look.
Now the big game on Friday night at Wembley, 8 o'clock kickoff. England taking on Scotland. Jason Murphy, our football trader, has joined me to preview this one. Jason, we've got a very special offer for all our customers online. Can you tell us what it is, please?
Yeah, we're giving a £5 free bet builder for England against Scotland for new and existing customers. All you have to do is just log into your Paddy Power account and you can have a free £5 bet builder on this game.
Okay, so a lot of customers mightn't be so familiar with betting in bet builders. Could you please tell us what a bet builder is?
Essentially, a bet builder is where you pick 2 or more selections in the same game. So it gives you a bit of value, a bit of entertainment for that 90 minutes of football that we'll see tonight. You can pick a couple of different things. We'll do an example. We'll run through one for you here. So, for example, if I want to do a 4-leg bet builder for England against Scotland tonight, I could start with Sterling to score anytime. How he was questioned about not starting in this England team is beyond me, because his record for England has been phenomenal. In his last 17 games for England, he's been involved in 19 goals, scoring 13 of them. So Sterling, it'd be my first leg in the bet builder to score anytime. It's about 13 to 8 as a single. If Sterling scores, it's very likely that Harry Kane might have assisted a firm. Harry Kane is 5-1 for an anytime assist, 14 assists in the Premier League this season. So if Kane isn't scoring, he's definitely providing. That's 2 legs. The third leg, I'm going with over 2.5 goals, because Scotland will need to score at some stage if England have scored already. We know Sterling has put the ball in the net. And if Scotland come out to play, that gives England even more chance of scoring. So over 2.5 goals is about 17 to 20 for this game. And then to wrap it up with the 4 legs, given those other 3 legs, what I've said has happened, I'm going to go with an England win, because if we're seeing goals, we've seen Sterling score, Kane get an assist, England are likely to win the game. Those 4 legs in a bet builder come to 16 to 1. Like I said, we've got a free £5 bet builder. If you wanted to put it on that, you can, but definitely choose your own angles as well. But most of all, enjoy the game. It should be a cracker, and really looking forward to it.
Okay, so that is Jason Murphy's bet builder for this 8 o'clock kickoff on Friday at Wembley. England taking on Scotland. Sterling, anytime goal scorer. Kane to have an assist, over 2.5 goals, and England to win. It comes in around about a juicy 16 to 1. And don't forget about that brilliant £5 offer on paddypower.com for all our Paddy Power customers.
Oh, I can't wait for this game tonight now. England-Scotland, 8 o'clock at Wembley. We should remind you as well, myself, Nathan and Ger have been taking part in our predictions across the tournament, and it's time to bring you the latest in the leaderboard. Glad to say, and I'm still top on 9 points, Ger on 7, Nathan on 5. So for these 3 games today, Sweden, Slovakia, myself and Nathan opting for the Swedes, Ger going for a draw. Ger is also going for a draw in Croatia, Czech Republic, and myself and Nathan opting for the Croats in that one. And all 3 of us have gone for England to beat Scotland tonight. How are you calling these games? We might start with England, Scotland. I mean, I know you're someone who follows Scottish football closely, but it's one that Scotland are going to have a lot of things go right for them tonight to get a result.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to come out a little bit stronger than they did against Czech Republic. They were quite unlucky against Czech Republic, to be fair. I thought they weren't awful. They were good, but it just takes a wind out of the sail a little bit. I think Steve Clarke needs to go with James Forrest at right wing back. I don't think the lineup that he went with, especially at the right back, it was always going to be a difficult one for him. You know, Jack Henry was always going to be the weak link in that defence, and unfortunately for him, it was his shot that led to the Sheik goal. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think England might just have too much talent in that side for them. I think they'll come out a little bit stronger, but I would like to see them get at least a draw in that game. In the other fixtures, I think Sweden will beat Slovakia. I think Sweden were more defensive than they would have wanted to be against Spain, but I think they'll have a bit more time to express themselves against Slovakia tonight. And then the Croatia game, again, yeah, Croatia do look like a side who are coming to the tail end of that peak that they reached in Russia a couple of years ago. So I think Croatia will win that game and set it up nicely for Czech Republic or Scotland to go head to head for the 3rd place in that group.
The Croats have never lost their second match in a major tournament either, apparently, so I'm told. So that would bode badly for the Czech Republic at 5 o'clock at Hampden Park in Glasgow today for that game. And Croatia kept the ball very well against England. They just didn't create too much, so they'll be hoping they can improve. I guess the group of death then tomorrow, like, looking at those games, it's set up very, very nicely in that group. I mean, who do you expect? Let's take the third place out of it for the moment, but like, who do you expect to be the top two in that group?
I think France and Portugal will be the top two. I think France will be the top. They were exceptional against Germany, and like, I'm not really buying into this whole idea that, you know, maybe France should be playing better football. They won the World Cup playing this brand of football. They potentially will win the Euros playing this brand of football. Yes, you think about the winners of the national tournaments, and you think they should be expressive. But I mean, if you think back to the winners over the last couple of years, France won it playing this style. Germany, do you remember the brand of football Germany played? Do you remember the brand of football Italy played? You don't really. You remember the players, you remember the individuals, you remember the final, you remember the feeling around the tournament. You don't particularly remember the team and the style of football they play. So if Didier Deschamps wins the World Cup and wins the Euros playing this brand of football, then I think that's the winning brand of football, not the expressionful brand that everyone seems to want France to play. So I think France will win this. Like, they've got the talent, they've got the squad there, and I think Germany will just about get third. Well, I think not easily they'll get third place, but I don't think they're better than Portugal at the minute. Yeah,
so just a reminder of these fixtures. So today's games then: Group E, Sweden against Slovakia from 2 o'clock in St Petersburg. Glasgow was the venue at 5 for Croatia against the Czechs in Group D. In the same group then, of course, England-Scotland from 8 o'clock tonight at Wembley. Tomorrow's games then: Hungary-France in Group F, we mentioned, 2 o'clock in Budapest. And Portugal against Germany is 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon in Munich. And then in Group E, Spain taking on Poland at 8 p.m. in Seville. We might just touch, before we finish, Enda, on Sunday. The later game, by the way, on Sunday, Group A, there's 2 games on Sunday. So Switzerland-Turkey is at 5. In fact, they're both at the same time because, of course, it's the final game in those groups. So 5 p.m. in Baku, Switzerland against Turkey. And 5 p.m. in Rome, Italy against Wales. And Wales, look, they were very impressive. Something just clicks with this Wales team, as I said the other day with Danny Gabaldon, that when they need a result, they get it. Like in 2016, when they, you know, in 2016 the groups, they beat Slovakia in their opening game, lost to England in their second game, and needed a result against Russia in the third, got it. And similarly the other night against Turkey, needed that result, otherwise they would have had a serious uphill battle to progress, and they got it. So I mean, you know, Robert Page is doing a lot of good things with this Welsh team.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it at the top of the show about how quickly you can look quite stupid in this, and I thought Wales were going to be terrible at this competition. I thought they were coming to the end of the peak that they reached. Gareth Bale's not the same player as he was. Aaron Ramsey's not playing as often. Aaron Ramsey was the best player on the pitch the other day against Turkey, and it's something weird that maybe Ireland need to tap into a little bit. Is that just when they get this group of Wales players together, the togetherness of the group, the quality of football they're able to play, and they just seem to get every single bit of talent that they have in their system out onto the pitch when they're playing, regardless of who they're playing and regardless of how much chaos is going on in the camp. They just seem to just know what they're doing when it comes to it. And I've been really impressed with Wales. It's something I'm quite jealous about, but it does show you the difference between, say Scotland and Ireland compared to Wales. Wales have Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale, 2 absolute superstars, and that's really the difference. I don't think we'd be talking about Wales and the emotional pitch they can get to if they didn't have those 2 players. So I think it's a mixture of the ability to play for their country when it needs, and they have 2 really world-class players in their system.
Yeah, turns out you need the big players for the big tournaments. Listen, Enda, enjoy the football this weekend. Thanks a lot for all that this morning. Great stuff. That's Enda Coll. Team 33's Enda Coll, I should mention as well, on the Euro 2020 show and Off the Ball this morning. We should remind you we're live in association with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England scored at the Euros. So 10,000 in the bank after Raheem Sterling hit the net against Croatia last weekend. If you missed any of the show today, as always, the full podcast will be up very shortly on the OTB Sports app, which you can download for free in the App Store or Play Store. It's on otbsports.com as well, or wherever you get your podcasts. Really, we'll be sure to have the full episode as well is up on youtube.com/Off the Ball. Plenty of clips across the day as well on our Twitter and Instagram at Off the Ball. I'll be back on Monday morning from 11 a.m. in the company of Damien Delaney and Adrian Barry. Plenty of Euros coverage as well, I should mention, across the weekend. So David Myler, Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan will join John Duggan on OTB Football Saturday tomorrow. The show is on air from 1 to 5 and Football Saturday from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And then on Sunday with John Duggan again, it's Mark Lawrenson and Philip Quinn for a Euros Hour from 4 to 5 p.m, looking ahead to those games on Sunday afternoon. So loads to look forward to across the weekend. But from us at the Euro 2020 show, same time, same place on Monday morning. Enjoy the football this weekend, and we'll speak to you then. Have a good one.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power's Save Our Game. England's goals total 10k so far for Irish football. Gamble responsibly. GamblingCare.ie.